bye week Monday night
over
on the other show over on Sports Time Ohio.
Yes.
Because there's nothing happening, right?
Because there's nothing going on. There's nothing to talk about.
Really.
Zero to talk about. Initially, just kind of as you think about what you heard today from Sashi Brown, not as much from Hugh. I mean, we'll get to Hugh in a second, but we usually get to hear Sashi Brown once or twice during the course of a season. Just kind of depends on when he wants to come downstairs and address the media. Halfway through the season, the team is 0-8. What did you take from Sashi?
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit. I thought the press conference was late. Okay, I think it should have been held last week.
Yeah.
Because it was the halfway point and it was a bad week. And it had nothing to do with what happened over in London.
Right.
It had everything to do with what happened or what really didn't happen on Monday and Tuesday once the team got back home leading up to the trade deadline. I mean, that was, I think, bombastic. I mean, what went on there. Now, the fact that it took until Monday of the following week to come out and handle that, I think you allowed, and the you being the Browns, they allowed 4 to 5 to 6 different versions of what went on. I think they needed to put their own version out ASAP, and I think that should have been done last Wednesday and get their what happened. Why didn't the deal happen? With Cincinnati, what was their involvement, if any, or their knowledge of the availability of Jimmy Garoppolo on Monday night, and what was their surprise level when they found out that New England did the deal for a second-round draft choice? And then, that's what I wanted to know. And then I think you could have, now whether or not people would have accepted your response, but at least it was your response. This seems to be late, and I think it was late. Now, nothing that he said surprised me. There were no bombshells. He didn't get up there and say, hey, listen, I'm resigning.
Right.
I'm stepping down because I admit there was a mistake made here last week, whether it is in the paperwork issue or just my assessment of the whole situation leading up to the trade deadline. He did not do that. He tried to preach that there is harmony between the coaching staff and the front office. Hard to believe right now.
Yeah.
It really is hard to believe. That was a tough situation. It was handled by a lawyer. Because that is Sashi's calling. He is a lawyer, and I think that it was almost like a deposition where he was guided in his own mind with his legal background that said, hey, listen, don't say too much.
Right.
Just say enough to get 26 minutes out of there, and that's what the length of the press conference was. So, I mean, it happened. Nothing surprised me of what was said or what wasn't said.
You said a key word last week when you did Jimmy's Take. I think it was Thursday, or you mentioned transparency.
Yeah.
They've got to be transparent. And I don't think they quite got to that point today. I think they tried as much as Sashi was willing to do to open up the door on the McCarron stuff. Didn't really want to go into the Garoppolo thing. Didn't want to go into the Garoppolo thing really much at all.
Well, they can hide behind. Really, I mean, it's almost it contradicts itself that, they said you can't talk about a player on another team, and yet they talked a lot about a player on another team because he's not on your team because you didn't get the paperwork filed in McCarron. So that was a bit contradictory. I mean, that was selected contradiction.
Yes.
I think the Browns have to be transparent. I don't think you can keep coming out and saying, this fan base is a great fan base. I mean, there are people, we want them to come out. We want them to come to preseason games. I listened to that in July when the commissioner sat up there with selected Browns players, Sashi Brown and both Haslams, and someone very in a kind of a highly selective audience of top season ticket or suite holders audience. Very, very right on, no questions barred. Hey, listen, this is terrible. I don't know if I'm going to hold on to my suite or my seats. I've had them since the 60s. This is a bad product. I don't want to go to preseason games. I can't give the tickets away. And they said, we need you at those games. But if you need them at the games, you've got to let them in on the operation of the team.
Right.
I think they lack transparency.
Yeah.
And I think that if they say that they're being transparent, it is under their guidelines.
Yeah.
I think people deserve to know what's going on. I think that this is a Ma and Pa type of franchise.
Yes.
Okay, when you take Ma and Pa out of it and you're not allowing them into the kitchen to discuss everything that's going on, then you have to accept the consequences of what's going on here. That was a bad week for the Browns last week.
It was terrible.
Yeah, bad week.
And Sashi Brown acknowledged that from a PR perspective, it was a bad week.
So how does it get to that level? I mean, they have PR people falling over each other there.
Right.
Okay, they have marketing people. They have a lot of people there, and they have a crowded front office. Why wouldn't somebody have said, "Hey, let's grab this bull by the horns here, and let's go out and put our message out, and let's do it fast."
Right. Instead, they waited, and it became every day was another day of finding out another reason why the trade didn't work. The McCarron stuff didn't go down.
And then, Dave, you walk into those Sunday pregame shows on all of the networks. You walk into Peter King's Monday morning quarterback, and you're walking into a minefield when you don't control the story.
Yep.
I mean, you have to control the story. This goes back to our West Wing days.
The message.
I mean, where is CJ?
That's right.
Where is CJ that would have been able to, CJ Craig, Claudia Jean Craig would have controlled the story.
That's right.
You have to control the story.
Because otherwise it becomes a second-day story and then a third-day story. And if that happens...
And then if they had controlled a little bit more, going back to our West Wing days, and I would advise you to watch it, look at where it sent us. Okay, would we be here because of that?
No way.
You were able to take the story out to the trash.
Exactly, and that's
Friday
Friday afternoon. You take it out to the trash.
Take it out to the trash,
and you're done. A couple of quotes I wanted to read to you from Sashi today. This is Brown's executive VP, Sashi Brown, saying on the McCarron deal, he said it's just a matter of getting to a deal too late in the process. Now, the thing that kind of got me a little bit, well, he also mentioned, well, most trades don't just happen in a whim. They happen over a long period of time. Well, I mean, there's been interest between the Browns and the Bengals, I think, for a while. So I understand what he's saying. It looks like it was fumbled. It comes
it does. And I would have liked to have known, and again, if you're transparent about it, I would like to know, when did it become McCarron?
Right.
Like, who walked in? Did Hugh walk in and say, hey, listen, let's give Cincinnati a call. They may want to deal A.J. McCarron. How did it become a second and a third round draft choice package?
Right.
If we're to believe, and no one has denied that, okay, that it was a second and a third round that was on the table for the Bengals to take, and the Bengals apparently said, yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah.
And if I'm the Bengals, I would have taken that for A.J. McCarron. How did it get to that point?
Right.
So the histrionics of how they got to that point would have been very interesting and helpful to try and piece this whole thing together.
Everybody denied the story that came out from last week that Sashi Brown had sabotaged the trade by not getting the paperwork in on time. Of course, he was going to deny it and everything. But Jason La Canfora, because you mentioned again on the Sunday shows, and Jimmy's exactly right. On the Sunday shows, everybody kind of throws darts at the Browns, I feel like. And it happened again yesterday, even though the Browns didn't even play.
Yeah, and remember now, they didn't play. You're not saying, oh my goodness, did you see their wide receivers? They drafted a kicker in the 7th round, and he misses 50% of his kicks. None of that came into play. This was all about this Monday and Tuesday and the activities that went on in those offices. But to have the word sabotage connected with your own organization. Yikes.
For the guy who picks the roster, the guy who's in charge of the 53.
Yeah.
Sabotaging a trade. I mean, and I know they're all denying it, and there's nothing, but again, it's just the fact that cloud hangs over you is terrible. Now, Sashi Brown did say this, Jimmy. We have a very aggressive plan as we move forward to bolster this roster in a huge offseason. Probably the most important we have coming up, and we plan to execute on it.
Yeah, but, Dave, I think if you went back a year ago, he probably said the same thing, going into that situation. I remember he came down last year at around this time, the bye week, whenever that was last year, and they had a late bye week last year. I can remember him coming down and saying this next offseason is a very, very important offseason. Yeah. So, that has, they're all important. I mean, when you're 0-8, what else can you talk about? You can't talk about the wild card possibilities.
No,
you have to talk about the draft. And, the basic question right now, what's not being said yet, but is being said by everybody outside of Berea, and maybe it is being said in Berea, is can you allow these guys to draft again? I mean, can you allow? I mean, I think that's the basic thing. I mean, he did say today, we missed on Wentz.
Right.
Okay. And he did indicate they missed on Watson.
Yeah.
Okay. To which Tony Grossi, said, well, I mean, when they said, well, we learned from that, and he goes, well, you didn't learn from that. You traded out of
the same thing,
the number 12 pick, and you did it all over again. You can't miss.
Nope.
You just can't. You
not when there's quarterbacks
miss. Not quarterbacks,
Nope.
and not up high like that. You just can't miss. And you have to. The fundamental thing right now is, can you allow this group to draft another class with those 5 precious picks in the first 2 rounds? And I think that's what's going to play out here.
Yeah. And the final thing from Sashi Brown, he said, there are signs of progress that people can be excited about and look forward to. So I had people on Twitter, and I love when people interact, because I said I almost feel like he's in a bit of denial when he says that, because this team is 0-8. And it's not a good-looking 0-8, as we talked about, like the difference between San Francisco's 0-8 at the time and the Browns 0-8. It's not good. They look like they're regressing, and that's what I'm talking about. You can argue, and you and I talked about before we went on, the Browns do much better now at stopping the run. They really do.
The best I've seen them since they've come back in the NFL.
And I don't want to begrudge them that.
No.
They really do a better job stopping the run. And by the way, there's my Twitter handle, @Dino Cleveland. Please jump on board if you haven't. But are there real signs of progress? Am I missing something?
Yeah, I find, individually, I don't see it. Overall, I don't see it right now. I really don't. I see, I went down this the other day when we did a piece on the news late last week about what we were told we were going to have and what we actually have 8 games into the season. We were told we were going to have a dominating offensive line and a very well-paid offensive line, and we do have a very well-paid offensive line.
Yes.
But it's not a dominating offensive line. Okay, there are holes in it, and now there's a big hole at left tackle because of injury. Jabril Peppers is not the player that I loved at Michigan.
No.
And in the first 3 preseason games for the Browns this year, I don't know what has happened there. And I don't know whether it's the way they're using him, the way they're positioning him, but it seems as though they have clipped his wings.
Yeah.
And he can't fly around the football field. And that's what I wanted to see him do.
Okay,
I want to see him fly around the football field. And I get that you can't return kickoffs anymore. And the punt returns would have been gravy on turkey for me. It would have been great. I wanted to see him play safety and be a dominating player up on the line of scrimmage, just off the line of scrimmage, in the back part of the Browns secondary, and that's not happening. I don't know about Garrett because he's been hurt. He's been hurt for over 50% of the games. I don't know how good Corey Coleman is. He's been hurt.
Right.
I mean, he's missed more games than he's played. I don't see the receivers are awful.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
And Joku's showed a few signs.
Yeah, but he reverts back. He reverts back to some bad habit. He drops the ball.
Right.
He drops the ball.
Right.
So I don't. Crowell disappointing the running game. I would say this: Duke Johnson has overperformed what I thought he was going to do. He really has. And that's because they have put him back. Remember, the first game of the year, he was a slot receiver, and they couldn't get the ball to him. They couldn't find him. After that, they went back to putting him in the backfield. He's a running back with receiving abilities. And I would say he is the lone threat right now offensively.
Yeah.
And the quarterback situation, I mean, it is what it is. They're all young.
Yeah.
One is younger than the other.
Right.
They're all young.
They're all kids.
Yeah.
Josh Gordon is scheduled to be in the building tomorrow. We haven't seen him since August of 2016.
Yeah, he played in the
preseason
right.
and in training camp.
Yeah, right. That's right. Made a great catch in the 3rd preseason game against Tampa from RG3. It was a typical Josh Gordon catch. It was phenomenal. He twisted his body, made the play. I mean, that's what he's got. There's a fascinating interview with him in GQ where he admits that for every game he played in, he was under the influence of either alcohol or drugs. And he started drinking when he was in 7th grade and using drugs. I don't know if both, but and he goes on to say that he moved out of Cleveland because he was receiving so much harassment and taunting from fans.
Which
wouldn't we have heard a little bit more about that?
This is the first I'd ever heard of something like that, and it's unfortunate. You don't like that. It's unfortunate, but the slate's not clean, but he has an opportunity between now and the 20th to go to meetings and lift weights and be in the building, and then depending on how that goes, the 20th he can start practicing, and maybe the 27th he could be an official activated part of the team.
Here's what I think. I'm going to leave you with this, all right?
Okay.
If we are leaving. I don't know if we're getting close to leaving.
I have one other question.
No, I'm not ready. It's not like I have a cab outside or anything like that. There is a scenario that you could take a look at, and I felt it after the London game, and I even felt it on the plane coming home from London, that Hugh Jackson had decided, I got to win some games.
Right.
Okay? So they went into this trading deadline, and they lose Garoppolo, and Hugh's got a line, I believe, with the Bengals. I think they love him down there. And he had a line with them that maybe McCarron is available. Okay? And they go down, and now imagine if Hugh gets McCarron, and I wouldn't have paid a second and a third, but let's just say that, okay, they do that deal. He gets a quarterback in here who will immediately be better than Kaiser, Kessler, and Hogan, if only because he knows the offense. He knows the offense better. It's the same offense he ran in Cincinnati. He puts them in there, and he thinks they're going to look better. Then he says, Corey Coleman's going to be ready to go in a couple of weeks. Coleman is going to practice this week. Okay, he'll be ready to go. Okay, they can activate him in a week or so, 2 weeks, whatever. And then I think they had a pretty good read that Gordon was going to be reinstated. Okay, now you put Coleman and Gordon out there with McCarron knowing your offense. Now you got something. Now you got something that somebody's going to have to prepare for it, and you have an opportunity to throw the football in and maybe score and make some plays. And remember the bottom line: get a couple of wins. If he gets a couple of wins, doesn't he have more power than that front office?
Oh, there's no question. There's no doubt about it.
He would be the only one who would have delivered. In the clutch.
Because his quarterback, his guy, came in and engineered wins. But alas, that didn't happen, and now it's up to the kids. It's up to the kids.
I still do believe, Dino, that you are going to see Gordon and Coleman on the field together. And in the article, I don't know if Gordon's trying to get out of here. I mean, here's the bottom line. He's got nowhere to go right now other than here. He's contractually tied to the Browns. So there was a story, that came out on the day of the trade deadline that maybe the Browns were considering trading away his contractual rights, which didn't happen. So he is here. That's the way it is.
So for the foreseeable future.
If he's going to be an NFL player, he's going to have to, wear an orange helmet for a while.
Like it or not. Last thing before we let you go. The couple of Cleveland Indians news and notes today. They get a qualifying offer to Carlos Santana, a one-year deal worth $17 million. So we'll see what Santana decides to do. Either he'll take that or he'll go into free agency and probably get more money, a bigger offer out there.
I like Santana, and I've changed my opinion of Santana. I was one of the people that a couple of years ago, I thought Santana, he didn't hit for average. I thought he was a liability defensively, but he's changed. I mean, he is what he is offensively. I don't think he's ever going to hit 280.
No.
But I think he is going to hit 40 homers.
Yes.
So he's going to in the high 30s. He's going to drive in a lot of runs. He gets on base. He has an incredible eye at the plate to get walks. And I think he's become a very good first baseman.
I do too.
I really do.
I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming from him.
So I think the Indians are probably, kind of wondering where this is going to go. If he goes on the open market, I think he's going to get offers.
Yes, multiple.
Were
you surprised about the Brantley thing that they
Well,
picked up the option?
I have to tell you, because it was a one-year deal, it's a $12 million one year, 11 point whatever. But anyway, that's a hefty deal. If the Indians are guilty of anything, they are guilty of loyalty to a fault.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there would be a lot of teams that would say, sorry, great player, but always hurt. And they would have a lot of, they would have a strong argument to say that. I commend them. They obviously feel that he can play. They love him. They love the fact when he is healthy, what kind of player he is. But there is an if there. If he's healthy. So, someone explained it to me that the one-year deal part of it, the aspect of it was that they probably should do it and re-up him for the 1 year. But again, now remember, he's post-surgery again.
Yeah, he's going to have
I don't think he'll be ready at the start
I don't
of
think
training
so.
camp.
I don't think so.
Which would mean you wonder if he'd be ready for the start of the year.
Opening day. Terry Francona is a finalist for Manager of the Year.
Should get it.
Yeah. Corey Kluber is a finalist for Cy Young Award. I think he will get it. Jose Ramirez, 2 years ago, hit .219. I think he played 97 games as a utility infielder. He has gone from hitting .219 to hitting .318, led the league, led all baseball in doubles, tied for most extra base hits, and he is a finalist for Most Valuable Player along with Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve. Unbelievable story.
Oh, it is. I'm going to tell you, when you're talking about that year that he had, and I have to be very honest with you, I didn't think there was a place for him anymore.
I didn't either.
On the roster. Okay, I really didn't. I thought that there was no position for him. And, I thought at best he would be the utility guy that could play anywhere. And I think when that year started, he was, but they had some injuries. Wow, amazing. Wish he had had a better postseason.
Me too.
But again, now the voting had already been done.
Yes.
So his postseason doesn't affect the balloting there. I don't think he's going to win it.
I don't either.
But for him to be in that rarefied air with that is a pretty amazing story.
It's been 64 years since an Indian won the MVP, and that was Al Rosen in '53. So it's been a while. I'm with you. I don't think he's going to win it, but I think the fact that he's in the top three is pretty impressive. And again, it was a great. And I was writing this, and I was like, boy, it's a great regular season, and everything. The postseason was so disappointing, but you can't undo the things that Jose Ramirez did this year, and it's pretty impressive. Jimmy, I'm glad you were here for a Monday night conversation.
You go. Yeah, that's right. It was fun.
Yes. All right, so again, we'll be writing more about what we heard today from Sashi Brown at WKYC.com. Jimmy will have more tonight on Channel 3 News at 11. For Jim
Incidentally, if Dino had to write about what Hugh Jackson said about the trade situation, it would be a very short article.
Yes, it would be like one sentence.
Be a one-liner.
It would be a one-liner. I'm telling you.
He said nothing. He was Sergeant Schultz from the great American classic Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing.
Nothing. All right, for Jimmy Donovan, Hogan, I'm Tina Talley. Thanks for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show here on WKYC's Facebook Live.